What's up guys? In this video, you're gonna learn why losing at the poker tables hurts so much. Now, throughout our lives, we've had a lot of experience of losing. Often our first experiences, mine in particular, were playing games with my family, learning the rules of dominoes, chess, checkers, any board games, Monopoly comes to mind, and generally, your parents are a little bit more experienced and they beat you in those games. We then go to school and we often do a lot of sports at schools. We also technically compete with our peers in exams, and we kind of get used to losing occasionally, or very often in my case. And we have a relationship that we build with winning and losing throughout our lives. For some reason, which we're going to explore today, for a reason that we'll get into, losing at poker is a whole different animal, and it feels very, very different. Now, from the outside, we could argue, okay, well, playing poker is one of the few things you do for money. So of course, when you lose something for money, it's going to hurt more. That's a factor, but in all honesty, after working with hundreds of players and speaking to them on why losing at poker hurts, the money's a small factor. It's a small factor relative to the big one we're going to discuss today. So why does losing hurt so much at the poker tables? Think about the last time you had a losing session. Think about the last time you had a losing week. Think about the last time you had a losing month. And some of you guys may even had a losing year, especially if you play MTTs or low volume and you haven't had time for variance to run out. So we've all experienced some form of losing. And as a poker player, it's really difficult to deal with. And the reason often it hurts so much, so if we look at the pain factor, why do we suffer when we lose? It very often comes from having high expectations going into our session. So when you invest time into studying, you pride yourself on having a good strategy, being a good poker player, or at least better than your player pool, you consciously, or often even subconsciously, you go into a poker session expecting to win. Right? And when you don't win, guess what? It sucks, right? It hurts. So the equation, which I don't know where I got it from, but it's very apparent to this situation, but expectations going into session, let's say they're high, 100 out of 100, minus reality equals pain. All right, so expectations, if they're really high, and reality is really low, so you lose that session instead of winning, that equals a lot of pain on the side, okay? So if we don't control our expectations going into sessions, we're always gonna suffer. It's always gonna hurt, all right? And this got magnified with a coaching call I had recently when the player was telling me, Adam, I've been studying way more recently. I've been putting more and more hours into my game, and if anything, I feel less confident, and losing is affecting me twice as bad. I feel way more negative emotions, I feel way more lack of confidence, and I feel frustrated that my results aren't going my way. And I asked him, has anything changed? And the first thing he said was, well, I feel like I should be winning. I should be winning because I'm putting so much work in. So what he's done, he's edged up that expectation bar because he's studying more, he's nudged that up, and guess what? You're gonna suffer more because your abilities haven't gone up in correlation to that. And also variance, newsflash, you don't get to choose if you win a session. All right, so expectations always need to be managed. They always need to be kept in check. So imagine, because most players come to me and they go, Adam, how do I get the pain of losing to feel easier? How do I overcome the negative emotions that come from a losing poker session? And very often they're approaching it from the wrong angle. All right, so what most people do is it's the equivalent of climbing a massive ladder. All right, imagine you're climbing up a big, big ladder, and a storm comes and knocks you off the ladder. All right, so you break a few bones, but you're alive to tell the tale. And you start asking, how do I make the fall hurt less? How do I make it so if I come off, I don't fall as much. All right, I don't hurt myself as much. All right, in reality, the problem is you climb the ladder. You're at the top now, you're gonna come down there at some points, and the higher you go up, the bigger you're coming down. the faster you're coming down and the more the crash is going to be. So rather than worrying about coming down, you've got to worry about not going up so high, all right? And expectations work in the same way. I also like to use the analogy of going for a night out with your friends, and it's 12 o'clock, you're having a great time, and your friends get a round of shots in, and you decide to have one. And another round comes, and another round, and another round. Before you know it, you've drank way too much, and you almost black out. All right, the next morning, you wake up, and you start trying to optimize your hangover. You're like, what can I do to make this hangover better? Anyone who's had a big hangover will know you're pretty limited. Get some fluids in, get some fruits in if you can, and you got to wait it out. It's going to take time. The harder you've gone, the longer the hangover is going to last. All right, so the solution isn't to get better at hangovers. The solution is, guess what? Turn down some of those shots. All right, so it's the expectations that we need to work on. So to do that, we need to go from a short-term model of thinking to a long-term. What that means is we need to stop training ourselves to judge our short-term performances. All right, so for example, this player who was talking to me about studying more, he instantly started to subconsciously or go into his sessions with a mindset of, I deserve to win. I'm studying more, therefore my short-term results should be better. In reality, his study habit that he was just starting to form is great for his long-term results. In a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, he should be a much, much better player and have better results than if he didn't study. But day to day, there's no difference. All right? You're not going to change the day-to-day swings. All right, so you've got to work on thinking more long-term, not judging the short-term. And often for players, this means having a different relationship with your results. Every time you're checking your graphs to try and validate yourself, every time you're looking at the swings in your cashier to try and see if you're winning or losing, you're just giving yourself irrelevant data. You're giving yourself a meaningless sample size that's going to cause fluctuations in your emotional state, especially if you're expecting to win. All right, so it takes time. I could picture myself when I was first in poker. I was so short-sighted. I was the kind of guy who'd be refreshing my graph mid-games. I'd be looking for my EV line when I did a good play to see if it went up. And you have to train yourself to start thinking more long-term, to realize, wait a second, what am I doing? Why am I setting these short-term expectations which have nothing to do with me? All right, I remember asking a player very recently actually in a coaching call, he was having a problem with his short-term results and the emotions coming up. I said, when you look at your graph for a day, how much of that result do you think is skill and how much do you think is variance? And he stopped for a while and went, well, just one day's results. And I went, yeah, 1 day's results. How much is variance and how much is your skill? And he's like, it's probably 90% variance. And I went, yeah, I'd probably agree with somewhere in that realm. And I said, so when you look at that graph, what does your mind say? And he said, oh, well, if I'm losing, my mind says, awesome, I'm amazing. And if I'm winning, my mind says, awesome, I'm amazing. And if I'm losing, I start to panic and I want to change things and I get self-doubt. So I told him, you're looking at a meaningless data point based on what you've told me, because it's 90% variance, and you're changing how you feel relative to that. All right, so we've got to watch what's going on. We're making this kind of error by not really understanding it, but we're letting expectations get too high and we're conditioning ourselves to judge ourselves off the short term. So we need to spend time lowering expectations going into our sessions, and then also we need to train ourselves to think long term. Start judging your performance in weeks, months, and even longer. All right. We also need to train ourselves to accept negative outcomes. All right. So it's in line with lowering expectations, but when the results come back, we need to allow poker to give us some bad variance. We need to realize, okay, this is just what I signed up for. I need to accept it. And the more you accept this, the more you relax, the more like the negative feelings and the kind of pain of losing goes away. And the more you can't accept it, the more you struggle, the more you try to change things, the more you try to fix the problems. All right, so to summarize, the reason you have pain from your poker results is because your expectations are too high. You need to work on lowering your expectations coming into your sessions, and you need to train yourself to think more long term. All right, so if you're doing the right things, you've got good skill level, you need to start attaching your confidence and your self-worth as a poker player in the long term, in the process, in the where you're going to be in 6 months from now, a year from now. And if you're too impatient, you're too locked up in the short term, it's going to hurt. It's going to sting when you lose. It's going to drive you a little bit crazy at times when you're on downswings. All right, so you've got to watch. The reason that's happening is because expectations are too high. I've linked my confidence in my poker worth, in a way, my identity, to the short term. I need to train myself to start thinking more long term. I also need to learn to accept what happens. All right, that's a hard one. I should probably do a whole long video on the importance of acceptance and letting go of things that have happened at the tables, because it's a whole other animal, but it's one of the most powerful skill sets you can learn. But for today, lower expectations and train yourself to think long term are the two things to work on. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, there's a great chance that you'll like the free PDF I put together for you, which is all about the 8 skills you need to train for elite poker performance. Today's skill goes into the category of emotional regulation, which is the second skill you will learn in that PDF. And yeah, just click on the description, it will pop up and you can download it straight to your email. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button before you go. There's plenty more coming from me very soon.